What up, military family? It's the Tondereau twin in the building. I'm Phil, and welcome to Value in All Veterans, episode number 12 of the show/podcast. If you haven't already checked out our channel on YouTube, head out to Value in All Veterans and go ahead and subscribe, like, and share the videos that are obviously on there of our past special guests. Speaking of guests, this episode we have special guest David Crenshaw. He's a 20-year combat Army veteran. Prior to that, he's done multiple years of being a public servant, and now is a volunteer for the Canines for Warriors organization. And he's going to be sharing a lot of the specific work that he does on that side, as well as being a mentor and an advocate for speaking and bringing awareness to the issues of PTSD and suicide for veterans and how we suffer from them, suffer from those issues. And also just a great individual, very interested in having him share his story of how he's transitioned out the military and how he's thriving out here, which is one of the main missions here at Value in All Veterans. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring him in. Dave Crenshaw, what's good, homie?
How you doing, brother? What's going on?
I'm doing good, man. Hey, I really appreciate you sharing some of your time with us here at Value in All Veterans. Me and Alvin obviously had our teammate, Clarice, old teammate of ours at Hampton University Track and Field. Shout out to Clarice for linking us up and telling us a little bit about the work that you do. Did a little bit more diving and seeing you were real active out here, and you figured you'd be a great guest for our audience, man. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, your military service, what exactly you did, if you deployed, where you've been stationed, all that good stuff.
No doubt. First off, thank you both for having me here. It's an honor and privilege to be able to do this. Like most, I grew up in a normal area in central New Jersey. I decided I wanted to go to the military from a young age. I did it. It was prior to 9/11. 9/11 actually happened when I was in basic training. So shortly thereafter, I found myself in Iraq. I think I was about 21, 22 years old at that time. I served about 14 months over there, 18 months on active duty, and I came home. While I was over there, I was in a traditional role as an MP, but did protective services, which we were assigned to the division commanders, and we provided dignitary service to them and some other dignitaries that would come through Iraq during those times. When I came home back in, I think it was, I went out in 2004. I came home in 2006. Mm-hmm. And when I came home, did, what a lot of veterans do, whether you just choose to stay in or get out. I stayed in. I wanted to pursue a parallel career in that and public service. Shortly thereafter, I became a fireman. And then I left that after about a year and a half and went into law enforcement, where I spent probably the next 10 to 11 years before I was forced out of it due to my PTSD that I had incurred during my time in Iraq.
Man, so public service, man, you did it. I didn't even know you were a firefighter too, man. Were you like an EMT as well? I mean, you seem like you covering all ground.
Yeah, so where I grew up, there was a lot of volunteering. So I started at 16 in that, to carry that on from an EMT to a fireman to a hazmat technician. I just love giving service back to the community. It was kind of my thing. And it was fun. I'm not going to lie, all that stuff. So coming home, I did become a fireman. It was my dream. And then I just felt there was a better call, not a better calling, but a different calling to be able to reach more of the masses, especially in the areas that I grew up with, becoming a law enforcement officer, even back then, trying to change the stigma for many on both sides of the coins as to, who can and policing our own, right? So I wanted to venture down that, and it was a dream of mine since a kid. So I brought two worlds together, and there I had it.
I mean, that's a really unique story because just like, we talked about off the air, it's important that, if we want change to happen, whether it's in the military and advocating for, Black folk, people that look like us, people of color. It's the same thing in another service industry or field like police work. If we're gonna make changes in our community, there have to be people willing to step in the shoes and do that. So I absolutely commend you for being one of those people. Hey, you already know people love to talk, but when it's time to put on them boots, everybody starts scattering, and only the real ones are really going to step up and show up. So, I mean, I really respect you in that regard, man. When it came to you transitioning out of the military, what do you think was your, biggest challenge, first getting out?
I would say for me, some of us, we have two different ways of transition out of the military: the way we choose to, and the way the military decides to choose for us. In this regard, had it been up to me, I would have 25 years of service in the military, concurrent with that of law enforcement or public service of the state of Jersey. That didn't get to happen. Unfortunately, as I call it, the demons of PTSD decided to rear their ugly heads from beneath the surface. And that came about, at a time that I never would have thought. I may have thought I had PTSD, maybe not. I was never diagnosed. And then my mom passed. And then the role of being an undercover detective in my community was taking its toll on me, and it started to bring about those same type of symptoms that present themselves with PTSD, and it started to eat at me. So with all that, it was the best choice to obviously get out. I went out on a medical retirement from the Army, so I really didn't get that choice. But being able to have these jobs concurrently still was able to allow me to kind of navigate the civilian world, because it wasn't like my whole entire life was spent in the military and I wasn't able to understand civilian life.
Right.
So I had a little bit of wiggle room to learn from, but nevertheless, we as police officers and definitely military members, service members and women, we consider ourselves, us versus them in a sense, not in a bad way, but that, we are us and then there's the civilians. And to know that I was about to get that title of being just a civilian, no matter how much you think you may be prepared for it, even if you are preparing for it, it is a tough transition. I would say one of the biggest things is just that camaraderie. There's nothing like knowing that a fellow brother or sister in arms, that they have your back. You don't even have to know that person, but just by the strength of the uniform they wear, that it gives you a sense of comfort and trust that you could rely on that person. So hitting the civilian world, it's kind of like everyone has on, cloaks. You don't really know who you're dealing with. Are they real? Are they trustworthy? Can you follow them? Can they be your mentor? So a lot of the times it makes it a little bit harder to actually navigate those grounds. Again, for my situation, I was kind of quasi, because I was dealing with law enforcement. So it wasn't as hard and problematic as it is for some veterans that I know that were active duty for 25 or 20 plus years. So,
I mean, that's very profound the way you talk about that shift in consciousness. It's a very real thing. Some people really get caught up in when they separate more of the economic sort of shift, and there's a mental shift that's there too. When even the labels, like I'm going to be a vet, but moving around as a civilian now, those even labels start to kind of mess with your mind a little bit. And then when it comes to trust, like in the workplace, different organizations, just like you mentioned, we talked about that in our podcast, how like it's very different when you're in the military and you're serving with people who have put equal skin in the game. They're making the same sort of sacrifice. It doesn't matter what your job is. If you in that uniform and in those boots, I know you're putting your life on the line for me, for your family, for the country. And there's just this level of trust you'll never seem to kind of get again once you're out, permanently, or, once you finish your service. And then you're out here dealing with people like the cloaks, the disguises, the people you can't see uniforms. So you don't know if they're really committed to things they say they are. Do they keep their word, X, Y, and Z? So I think it's very important that you brought up that mental shift, not even just the whole economic shift people get caught up in when they separate.
And to be honest with you, I really personally think, from dealing with some of the people that I've dealt with since getting out and being a mentor and advocate, the biggest component really is more of the mental piece, to be honest with you. Economic, depending on your skill craft and your background, most of the time a veteran, I would like to think, I don't know the numbers, but are able to find jobs, maybe not the jobs they want, but they are able to transition to some jobs. And I know in the Army, they've done a lot better than what they have in the past of trying to help with the transition for service members. And from what I'm seeing out there on the web, it seems like this is happening in all the services. The big thing is you just touched on it, was identity. A lot of times we get trapped in that identity, and if that's who we are, and then you come into question, have we done enough? Could we do more? And you're in that mental limbo. And when you get out of it, it takes a little time to really navigate it, because you think you have it, you think you're prepared for it, yet it's a whole different animal. And we've already touched upon the reason as to why, but it's now you have to come up with the tools to be able to do this. And a lot of it, I think, comes down to vulnerability, right? We have to be open and honest with ourselves that, okay, we are in a different realm. This isn't our position of comfort. So do we have those people we can trust to reach back on? And I think one of the biggest things that help service members are the ones when you find businesses that are very advocating of service members, looking for vets to hire. And they have whether they're a veteran service officer, not the ones through the VA, but the ones of these organizations that are going out and headhunting and looking for veterans to bring into their organization because they see the wealth and the worth of a veteran. And so that is the civilian side of the world looking to come and meet up where the military's at. And I will say, I do like that. I do like what I've been seeing. I'm seeing a lot of success stories out there. I'm seeing a lot of veteran entrepreneurship, which is it just amazes me. Every day I go on LinkedIn and I see another vet who started their own business, and somehow the nexus, definitely not forgetting where they came from and utilizing the skills that they received from the military in their workforce to be able to thrive is just amazing. And again, this is not something I looked into, but it'd be very interesting to see how many of those people may or may not have suffered from PTSD. And I say that just so we can show that, the mental part is a major component here, but you can still overcome that and still thrive in almost any field. It just depends on what tools you're willing to use and mitigate these situations.
Nah, I mean, it's very important that you're bringing up the aspect of the mental component of adjusting to the outside. And, even with the organizations, just like you said, if you're if you're a company, or, looking to hire vets, well, it's a good marketing scheme essentially, but do you have a resource officer who's a vet once they get in to give them the tools to kind of, get on their way and going and adjusting properly? Because some these jobs, they say they hire vets and that's it. Once they get in, there's no sort of support for them. So you bringing up the mental aspect of it, even from a, before a job aspect of it is, very crucial. I mean, even talking about mental health, man, now that you're talking about it and obviously an advocate for it, we all are, but you're really out here doing the work. Like your journey of mental health and engaging in it and with therapy, like, could you give us, a little bit of experience with that, and also any people who might be struggling with mental health and reaching out for therapy? I mean, you have any, you could give some words of encouragement for them as well?
As I recently even told some friends and coworkers of mine this week, it's one of these things, right? You wouldn't know what success was if you didn't have failure, right? Let's say that. And some of us are a little bit more hard-headed than others. We need to learn by example, or we need to go through it. And I being the same thing, I consider myself an alpha male, and coming into the military and the law enforcement when I did, I would say I was kind of raised in that, or groomed in that old school fashion, whereas you just suck it up, shut up, and drive on. And that was always the recipe for so long, for so many different genres and jobs, whether it was being a fireman, a cop, a paramedic, a military serviceman or woman. And you get that point where, for me, I had hit the bottom of the barrel. Like, that's it. It wasn't a slow fall. It was a very fast drop, and I found myself there. The tough part about it was I didn't have anyone there to really understand where I was coming from, not from my family's point of view, and even still from the military point of view. Although I may have had friends that may have had PTSD, no one admitted to it. And it wasn't until my failure was I able to have success and afford success in others. And so what my story is, again, I had said earlier, my mom had passed. I was dealing with some demons of, the way I really put it was my moral compass was off, right? I was an undercover officer, and I was infiltrating communities of people of my own culture. And although it was a necessity for it to do it, and I was proud of the work I did, nevertheless, if you're a wholesome person who's used to doing things one way, and then constantly dealing with negativity and seeing the lowest of the low of life and what certain communities have to offer or not have to offer, it eats at you. It eats at you. So in my case, I found myself being a father, a husband, a brother, a son, a cop, a military guy. And then that last person I was a fake drug dealer, and for me to constantly go through all these waves, as I used to like to tell people, it was a light switch. I was one way at work, and I turned that switch on, and then I turn it off to go home. Well, at some point, that switch was not able to go off when I got home. And that's when the demons start attacking in your sleep. Some people attack subconsciously. So for me, as a father of 3 girls, I know that they needed me. And I've heard the horror stories, unfortunately, of service personnel that have taken their own lives. And that's always bothered me. And I've had some friends of mine or coworkers that have, ultimately taken their own life because things have become too much. And I just knew I didn't want to be another statistic. And so with that, I knew that the only way that I could be the best person that I need to be for me and my family is I need to advocate for me. And, not to bash the VA, because that's not what we're here to do. We understand that it's a large hospital system. It's got a lot of people to take care of, and it's imperfect. And, it's a lot of times it comes down to politics with them. I've met some really great people in the VA, and that have helped me to get back on the track that I am today. But the biggest thing that I tell anybody is you're not alone. And I know that's probably a slogan. That's probably cliche at this point. You hear that a lot. You're not alone. I'm here to tell anybody who's watching and listening to this, you really aren't alone. There's not a story or a situation you could tell me that I would be shocked at anymore. And it just takes, and no credit to me, really not. It just takes someone of the caliber like me to sit and listen, or maybe have gone through that situation and pass that on, impart that knowledge on to someone else, and to say, hey, truly, even if it's sitting down and holding her hand and hugging them and being real, right? Because a lot of times we can't be real anymore. We gotta have that tough exterior. We can't show people the weakness inside of us. And I think the best way to recover and to start going ahead is you have to recognize that in yourself. And if you can't recognize that, no matter how many people do, you're not going to be able to get where you need to be, right? So I understood, okay, I have a problem. They're telling me I have PTSD. When I got diagnosed, I was told I was highly functioning. That's all I heard. I didn't need to hear anything else. I was highly functioning. So I could go back to my job as being a narcotics undercover detective. I could go back to being narcotics, high-risk search warrant entry team member. I could go back to doing investigations. I could go back to being a father. I could do this. And I always like to bring this up with anybody I get the opportunity to tell this to. A year to the date, the counselor from the VA who told me that by virtue of the jobs that I do are going to be my demise, she was spot on. And I just go, wow. I didn't want to listen to her because I heard what I needed her to say. I was highly functioning. I didn't want to hear it as if there was a problem with me. Now, that was ignorant to think of now being educated and know what I know, that's ignorant to think that way, right? You're not weak. There's not a problem. This is something that is normal. As of late, I try to tell people, civilians more especially, Think about what's going on with COVID. Think about the mental stresses that has done with you, social isolation, and all the things that come about, the health reasons that come about, even if you didn't get COVID, right? A lot of people gained weight, a lot of other conditions. People were scared to go to the hospital, so other conditions may have worsened. These are all symptoms, not, very close to PTSD, maybe not PTSD, but at least if I have to sit here and explain to someone, if you could just meet me there and understand at that level, then we could start, with a civilian. And now you take this to the military side of the house. Now it's like, wait a minute, it's not just military. It's everybody. Why? Because we're humans.
Right.
And that's why sometimes the answer is very basic. It's very simple. We're so busy giving stigmas and stereotypes and afraid to break that barrier. And you got to do it. I tell you got to advocate for yourself. No one's going to care for you. I don't care who or what they say. No one's going to care for you the way that you care for yourself. And you got to love yourself, right? You love yourself, then everyone else will love you. Because no matter how much everyone else loves you, if you don't love yourself, you're not feeling that. You're not able to receive that. And that's when those demons are still playing in the back of your mind. And for some, unfortunately, those demons have won. And I'm adamant in my fight. And I tell people all the time, PTSD is like, it's like a disease for some, or an addiction, however you want to apply that definition. It just lays in there and wait, right? It's dormant. And it has its moments it's going to pop up and get you. I know I'm never going to get rid of this. I just know that I need to manage it, because I don't want to be just surviving life anymore, right? I want to be thriving and living. And I can say that now. Before, I was just thriving. What PTSD did to me in the military, oddly enough, it didn't have as much of an impact. And I say this to people because I felt safe. Again, it brings us back to being around our brothers and sisters in uniform. We know that they've been in the same mud, share the same blood, whether they have or not actually with you. We just know that that's the concept, that you can trust that person. And being over here on the civilian side, it was just really different. And I would tell you, in my counseling, getting back to point with the counseling, I went simultaneously with counselings, right? I did the military side of the house and I did the law enforcement side of the house. And I found advantages to both. And this would be my point number 2 to make. Aside from advocating for yourself, you have to find the best counselor or mental health professional that fits your need. Whether it's you feel more comfortable with a woman, whether you feel more comfortable with a man, whether you feel more comfortable with a Black person, a white person, a Spanish person. We have to be real here, right? We have to do what fits our need. And there's nothing wrong with that. And once you find those 2 things, then you're on the path to progress, right? Because then they'll be able to do what they're trained to do. They'll get you to open up. They'll ask the questions. And then systematically, before you know it, you are opening up. Now, I'm not going to sit here and lie and pretend like counseling is the end all be all. There's people who are medicine. I had my share of being on pharmaceuticals from the VA. Me, I wanted to be a pill person personally, not be hooked on that stuff. I wanted to find ways to get out and off of that as quickly as possible. But I'm not going to lie and say that I didn't need a boost to get me over the hump, right? I'm being real. As physically fit as I was, as mentally strong I was, it just doesn't matter. And bringing back what we talked about earlier with this identity thing, right? Am I weak? Does this make me strong? Am I masculine enough? Does all these questions come into play? And for me, it really didn't dawn on me how impactful what I was learned and what I had gone through for myself, of how much it could help others, until I did one of my first speaking engagements for K9's for Warriors. And I did it, and there was I know you'll understand the vernacular, and most people hopefully here will, but they were special operations, and former Delta, which, we know is a tier 1 counter-terrorist unit in the United States military's arsenal, supposed to be the best of the best, right? So of course I'm in awe, because here I am at this table with this gentleman, and I look back, and again, now here comes the identity crisis, the imposter syndrome. What am I complaining about? What did I really do? am I really having PTSD? These guys they really brought the fight to the enemy. And when he got up to speak and gave me credit for understanding why he just may be doing the things that he does and the organization whom he works for, that's when I realized, like, wow, we really are on the same level. It doesn't matter if you're type A, type B, if you're special operations, if you're a ground pounder, this affects people of all different walks of life in so many different ways, but we could still treat it the same at the same basic foundation. And I think, we are doing a good job in the military of acknowledging that. I think there's always room for improvement. We always say, no matter what service branch you're in, we always know there's always room for improvement. And this is still one of those fields that there is. We have to make this normal that people have PTSD or mental health issues and to address it. That should be as normal as going to go get your teeth cleaned. We shouldn't, yes, podcasts like this are informative and we need it. We need yours. We need all those that are out there, because what's good for here, for us, for you, me, may not be good for someone else. And so that's one of the reasons why I say advocating isn't just, just for that one person to do. If you found that solution and it's helped you, I'm shocked today to see how many personal friends have reached out to me by phone call because they're afraid to utilize the system and because they know what I've gone through with the professional counseling through the VA, the professional counseling through private sector, taking medicine, getting to the service dog, which we could get to in a little bit. I've taken all these avenues, but I had made that decision and that commitment to myself first. I made that commitment to myself. I made that commitment to God. And through the power of spirituality and this together, I was able to become the best father I could be, the best son I could be, the best brother I can be, the best human being I can be. And I think another segue to lead us into these transition is purpose, right? You have to understand your purpose, not what someone wants for you, but what you want for yourself. So it's okay if maybe you left the military as a supervisor or E8 or E9, and now all you want to go do is clean carpets. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's what makes you happy. And I think sometimes we get caught up in those identity problems, and I think that's something that faces a lot of service members is what's there on the beyond. Because in the service, no matter how long you've been in, you've always had a mission, right? We've always been given a mission. We've been given a start point and we've been given an end point, right? Then we have our AARP, we have our AARs rather. And then we go and that's the cycle. And we keep doing that until the next mission comes around. So when you no longer have a mission, what do? You could be a leader in the military, but you still have someone telling you what to do. They're still giving you your next mission. And so that sometimes can be a little challenging for some. Those that have chosen to use the military as a catapult, knowing that that's what they were using it for, to get to where they wanted to get at the end game, kudos to them. More power to them if it works out seamlessly. For some of us, like myself, I came across PTSD. It ended my public service career. It ended my military career. And those are a whole different set of challenges, even besides this transitioning out of the military in and of itself on its own.
I mean, I think it's very important, the story you just told, and you being a Black man, and us understanding that mental health, getting help, therapy is like a fringe term in our community. We really look down upon it culturally. And so you being a vet and being an advocate for actually getting out there and recognizing the problems, taking ownership of the problems, and then also understanding I'm not alone in this and there are tools out there for me. It's one thing to understand the tools and the issues you have, but it's a whole nother game when you're actually getting engaged with it and trying to get better. I mean, just like you said, it hit me too, because if you're not good, your family's going to suffer. You're a father of 3 girls, a husband, you're a son, and it's one of those things where if I don't get right, other people are going to be impacted. I don't just belong. Like, I got my real unit too, my family, not even just your unit you was with in the military, but I got to do this for my family too. And some people, they can't, it's too much pressure. And like you said, they succumb to the demons with everything they've already dealt with personally. And then the outside pressures come in, and that's when people start to drown. So you stepping up here and just giving your story and your journey and continuing journey through getting mental health and therapy, I think is just very profound. It's very important for us. I really appreciate you sharing that too, David. And, you also touched into how you do speak for the organization Canines for Veterans. So that's the next topic we're going to end up talking about. So how did you get started working for this organization? And then also specifically, what do you do and what is Canines for Veterans?
So, I have to give props to the people who really advocated for me. The story is amazing. And when I said I had no one to turn to soldier wise or cop wise to be able to lean on, I did have a good friend of mine who was an officer in the military, and our paths have crossed numerous times, from teaching together at the police academy, teaching OCS together at the military academy, not West Point, but the New Jersey Guard one, to we both having 3 daughters, barbecuing together, things of that nature. I have known him for some time, and I bring this point because it's relevant. His family, the Zelensky Foundation, has been instrumental in helping service members. And when I tell you the backdrop to them, you'll understand why I feel this is important to bring up. They're a Gold Star family. Okay. So, they lost a son in Iraq in 2005. I don't know if you want to call it the irony, I still get lost for words when it comes to this, but I left Iraq November 13th, 2005. And I believe it was November 19th that their son had passed away. 101st had took over for us. And knowing that I've been working with his brother, we become best friends over the years, I still couldn't even be a best friend, whether as a cop or a service member, to him, to even ask him, hey, how are you doing through all these years, the fact that your brother passed away as a result of combat? And through that guilt, right? Survivor's guilt, that's a big thing too. Here it is. I came home. One kid from Monmouth County, New Jersey, came home and his family celebrating while another family is burying their kid. And when you look at that in my stance, I'm like, I just felt guilty. That's one of the biggest things that drives my PTSD is survivor's guilt. There's other things that happen over there. And, I like most, you sit here, how come I survived? How come I made it? Why do I get to live this life out? And so this family, they've always been part of Canines for Warriors since I want to say shortly after its inception, if not at the beginning of its inception. So, they raise monies around here, a lot of foundations in the name of their son, and they've donated enough money to afford 100 service dogs for service members. So it wasn't until I went through my downfall and I thought about, well, I don't want to be hooked on pills. I don't want the VA shoving 13 different medications down my throat. I could deal with the counseling, but this I didn't want to do. And I was like, let me look into this program that they had. And I talked to them, and they gladly was like, hey, listen, we'll help you in any which way to get this service dog. So I said, okay, what harm could come from it? I remember I had dogs growing up as a kid. I loved dogs. But when my favorite dog passed away, I never got another one. And I kind of figured, at this point in my life, I needed to exploit every avenue out there to get myself better, quicker, and come back better than I've ever been before.
Right.
So to me, it was only a win-win. What's the purpose? It wasn't like it was a lose-lose situation for me, right? I get a dog, and then the way this program works is these dogs are rescues. So you're also saving a dog's life, and the reason I say the importance of that, right? We have battle buddies in the military, and these service dogs serve as our battle buddies. For those unlike who don't have kids or maybe not have family or close friends, these dogs provide that. They provide that person that needs to be cared for. It's a mission, right? And the mission is to make sure your service animal has a good life so that way he could take care of you. So it's that constant circle back and forth. You taking care of a service dog taking care of you. And that's the beauty of their program. That's how I came to find K9's, was again through the Zelensky Foundation. And at this point, again, I'm still scraping the bottom of the barrel. Life still was very dim. There was no light in my life, so to speak. My kids couldn't give it to me. I had just been forced out of the public service. I was on my way of being medically retired out of the Army. I wasn't ready to hang up my cleats. In my mind, I still had enough fight, enough life, and everything left in me to continue on. And clearly that wasn't the case. And the first time I met Doc, they have these things called Dog Day, and you meet your service animal. And the way they do this is they pair your service animal based off a series of questionnaires and phone interviews that they do with you. Mm-hmm. And they really got it down to a science. And so when I got Doc, my service dog, here it is, you turn around and here comes this dog and this just overwhelming sense of emotion, right? And the only thing that I could equate it to is it's like having a kid, right? The first time you're having a kid, you have to prepare for it. It's coming, but do you have everything that you need to be successful in this? Mm-hmm. And then when you get this dog, it's almost the same as the baby coming out like, oh, it's here, it's now. Like, you can't run away no more. Now this life needs you. So you have to be here. You have to do this. And there becomes that inherent bond immediately. And it's just, and like I always tell people, it's no magic trick. Let's just think about it. Millions of people have dogs all over the world, right? They've known affectionately as man's best friend. They have that name and that title for a reason. A regular dog could come in your life and just make you happy. It can make you forget about the bad day you had at work. So these dogs are, yes, they do exactly that. They do a little bit more for the PTSD aspect, and we could go into that, but it's still the basic step of it's giving a life, saving a life, and constantly going in rotation with this. And did I think where I would end up at the level I am, volunteering and advocating with K9's? No, that wasn't my goal. My goal was just to get myself back to a place. And when I seen what the dog could do for me, it would have been selfish of me to keep all this to myself and not share it with anyone else. And, they had asked and I answered, and I did a couple of advocating things for them. And then I found the answer to that question that we had, early on in the segment, your purpose.
Right.
Still constantly that battle, still going on inside of me. I'm a young guy. I think I still have a lot left to give to society. And you go, okay, well, what's your purpose? And every event that I did, whether it was just a local speaking event, whether it was a national event, whether it was going to DC and speaking on behalf of these guys to get a bill passed in Congress, all these things, as great as it was to help service members, to give it a voice, to say, hey, listen, this is a regular face with a regular person with regular issues. I'm here to help. I understand what you're going through. What a lot of people don't know is that was still part of the healing process for me. Every time I get up on the stage, even doing this now, to be able to stand, sit before you and have this conversation candidly, I couldn't do that before. To sit here and tell someone, oh, I have PTSD, it's like, oh, get away from me. We don't want to touch you. We don't get that. And now I can say that confidently. It is what it is. I suffer from a debilitating mental illness as a result of what I've seen and what I've done over the years, not only in my military career, but in my civilian career. And it's just a fact of life. And that's why we need to just know how to mitigate, advocate, and make this to where it's normal. It's normal, like I said, as going to the dentist, as normal as getting a checkup, as normal as, you had to get stitches almost. It's just another medical condition that we treat. You know, if it's diabetes, do we think that, do we look at people with diabetes like there's something wrong with them? No, right? They're just diabetic.
Right.
So why are we giving this, so much, I don't want to say negative attention, but why do we give this the stigma? Why do we give this the stereotypes? Why does this scare people? Why are we afraid to hire people who have PTSD? It's an anxiety disorder is what I explain to people. That's it. It's anxiety. It doesn't make me harmful to society. I like to think that I'm still contributing to society in the best ways that I can right now. Mm-hmm. And absolutely, Doc has afforded me that. Those that are listening that have PTSD, whether it's the night terrors, which I experienced, whether it's the vulnerability of going out in public and being in large crowds, I don't like that either. Whether it's, having someone watch your back, the whole story of people not wanting their backs to the doors, the hypervigilance. There's so many different signs and symptoms of PTSD that have been alleviated with the use of my service dog. And I'm not here to, say like, hey, K9's for Warriors, end all be all, get a dog or you're still going to have PTSD. That's not the case. It's just another tool in the tool belt. And if it works for you, hey, it works for you. It worked for me. It worked for several others that I was able to help get into the program. And it's why I believe in it. It's why I speak on it. There's a lot of different modalities of medicines that are coming out there right now to get service members off of the traditional treatments of just pills and therapy. And this is just another one of those approaches right now. And it's just being real with people like, hey, listen, it's not magic. Yes, they're dogs. Yes, they're trained to obedience standards higher than most. And then, yes, they do a certain set of skills that we under command that we could give them that help assist us out in public. Doc goes with me everywhere. I'm taking him on flights. He's coming with me on my Disney trip in a couple of days. He's always at the sideline with my daughter's soccer. So it's good. And not even just to see what he does for me. I tell people I could go into a Home Depot when it's happened. And I've been in this Home Depot, I don't know, 6 months I was going to it. I saw this guy always interacting with him at the paint counter. Never knew he was a vet. And then one day he was just very, very somber and just asked if he could pet my dog. And I allowed him to do it. And the guy just started crying. And he goes, I really thank you for doing that. And I'm like, all right, is everything all right? He goes, oh, I'm a Marine vet. I'm having a tough time. I tried to reach out to the VA and it just wasn't helping. And, I've had some really bad thoughts today. And this dog just changed my mind. So here I am like, whoa, taking me aback now because I wasn't even expecting this. And it's nothing different than taking a dog in a children's hospital, right? Again, we look at things in certain ways for positive when it fits the need or when it fits the perfect picture. There's nothing different than that of vets. We're still human beings. We still got to be treated as such.
Right.
Whether it's in this community or any community.
No, I mean, that's really powerful stuff when we talk about our relationship with animals and specifically dogs. And it sounds like K9's and your dog, Doc, is definitely giving you that support that you need. And there's just that relationship, that trust that, whether you're dealing with mental health issues or anything of the like, a support dog can help in that aspect. I think that's very powerful that this organization is able to do that. When it comes to, you mentoring, like where does it, who do you speak to with mentors? I mean, are you mentoring children? Are you mentoring, grown folk, all of the like what do you do in that field?
So, with K9's, they're obviously they go out and they do a lot of events to help raise awareness, right? Mm-hmm. To raise awareness on what their program offers. They are the largest K9 training facility for veterans with PTSD, TBIs, and military sexual trauma. Any one of those three, they are the largest ones in the country to do this. They believe in their program so much that, again, they went to Capitol Hill to fight to get a bill in Congress, which this bill actually is supposed to, if it all works out the way it's supposed to happen, is a service member suffering from PTSD can go to the VA and say, hey, I want a service dog. I want to try this. The VA gives them a voucher, and they could go to any ADI certified facility, which is American Dog International. It's an accredited brand across, international brand. So you could take your service dog on planes and travel and all those things. And they know that they're trained to a specific standard, and that you would get a voucher and that service members could go and get. Mm-hmm. The K9's for Warriors is so inundated with applications. I think they're up to 2024 right now already with all their classes filled. So, and there are other ones out there, and I'm not knocking them. I just don't know them. I support Canines because I know what they've done, and I know how they've helped me. And so with that, the mentoring aspect, I do that through my public speaking, whether I'm at a fundraiser to help raise monies for these things, right? Because everything costs $1 these days. Nothing's for free. And they are a 501c3, so they're still doing this on their own. And, that's why they're trying to get the government to help, because, again, there's so many veterans out there that could use this. And we all know even one life saved, even if it's from their one service dog, that's still one life that's saved. That's still one life that may have a husband, a son, a daughter, a brother, a cousin, an uncle, whatever in that family. Mm-hmm. And I'm proud to say that since K9's inception, they've only lost, I think, I don't have the latest numbers, but I think it might be 700 dog teams or approximately. But there's only been one person that has still unfortunately committed suicide. So when you look at those numbers, and if we were to probably take those numbers of traditional therapies of veterans and look at those veterans that have unfortunately still taken their lives, and how many were actually going through regular modalities of healthcare, I'm sure the numbers are obviously 1 out of 700 dog teams. It speaks for itself. You try to save as much as you can and where you can. And so through the mentoring, when we go to these fundraiser events, I just enlighten people and let them know, what the dog does. There's no magic. This is me. This is where I came from. This is where I'm at now. Mm. And so a lot of that may be private donors, civilians, some military in there. I would say the biggest thing is just being open and honest, right? I think anyone who knows me personally, they knows I'm a very honorable person. I hold my word and my character to the utmost. And so if I put my belief, or I put my stamp of approval behind something, like, I'm giving it my all, that's all my heart. And so I bring that when I go to these teaching or speaking engagements, I'm giving that to them. And so a lot of my mentoring, believe it or not, so that's the advocating side of the house. The mentoring actually comes because a lot of people have seen me do this. And because they're still a little weary of coming out of the light, or into the light, however you want. I would say into the light, right? Because coming into the light is a good thing in this case, because it's brightening your world. There's positivity there. So I would say coming out of that darkness and into the light and letting people know, like, hey, I need help. I think that's where the mentoring aspect comes from, because I'm giving those people an opportunity now not to spotlight, come into the light, but not to spotlight publicly and openly with people, because some people, there is a sense of embarrassment there for some. I was embarrassed at first, like, oh my God, what does this mean? Like, I got PTSD. What does this mean?
Right.
And, when you I even told family, and they're like, you don't got PTSD. These doctors don't know what you're talking about. They're just making that up. Again, right? We go back to our community. It's taboo.
Right.
And so even in my own family, I was like, no, listen, just because I don't explain to you everything that I've seen or done, believe me, there's a reason behind this stuff. So that mentoring comes to that aspect. I can tell you that just in the last 48 hours, I've talked to 3 service members that are still currently serving, that are friends of mine, and just how to get over certain things and how to navigate it, and that they're not alone in these thoughts. Mm-hmm. And one of them is actually dealing with the whole transition and out of the military right now. And I'm not, without mentioning names or anything, I will tell you that they're an 05, in the military. And so just being up there at that level, it's even harder for them, combat tested, combat proven, combat infantryman badge, Purple Heart, the whole 9 yards. And their biggest transition isn't, well, how am I going to provide for my family? It's, How do I get past this mental block? How do I get past these emotions? And the truth be told, and I'll tell everyone, I don't know if we ever really do. You've dedicated blood, sweat, and tears to this. Some of us have lost friends to this. Some of us have lost families to this. Some of us are indebted to this. And I think at the end of the day, you just have to sit here and go, hey, I got it, but I got this. I got people like, me, like you, people who are willing to step out on that ledge and say literally, hey, I'm here with you. Like, you're not going down alone. I'm going to pull you back in before you go down. And that's where I think people need to understand there are people. It just doesn't have to be the counselor at the VA. With this whole thing, I tell people, go, hey, if spirituality is your thing, if God's going to be your savior in this, there's military chaplains that are huge benefit to programs like this too, in the health and welfare. Yes, Doc is great. K9's is great. It works. My mentoring is great, but my mentoring wouldn't come along with, honestly, I give all thanks and praise to, Jesus Christ and God all day, every day. I'm going to put that out there because that was a huge component in really, really catapulting and me learning that, you got to love yourself before you love someone else. Because you don't love yourself. What you think you're giving that love to someone else, that's not what they're getting. They're just getting some type of nexus, the next best thing.
Right.
And so, there's so many things that you could pull together for this. And that's why I'm not for or against any specific one. I'm just, hey, we're all veterans. Mental illness is a huge thing that we need to not be afraid of anymore, that we need to talk about. A lot of people don't even know that you could be 100% disabled through the VA and still be in the military. These are just things that we're not taught. And that's a big part of it. The next thing is education, is how do we get to these soldiers at the lowest level to educate them instead of the misinformation that's being disseminated throughout the services and outside the services and of the VA. And frankly, that's just the truth, because I could go from one VA to the next VA to the next, and they're all going to give me different answers, although it's a nationally based system with a set of directives.
I mean, that's why I'm a big supporter even of this organization you're telling me about that you advocate for, K9's for veterans, or K9's for veterans and for warriors. And it's one of those things where any sort of natural remedy to an issue that is going away from medicine itself, like pills, I think is a great thing that I think people naturally would like. They would rather not take the pills and rather do something else outside of medicine that could help me with this issue. So I really like the work that you all are doing, giving veterans that kind of route to take in order to get their life back and get that support that they need, and give the dogs the support they need too. Let's not forget about the dogs either. They've been through some stuff and they need support as well. With you dealing with this organization, and then just kind of seeing what's the issue of PTSD, the issue of suicide, even on the mainstream level, at the political level, it seems like it's clearly an issue. People are talking about it, maybe even using as a marketing ploy. Let's be real. People are very manipulative and want to take advantage of big issues like this so they can get eyes on them. But we still don't see the results. So why do you think that is? Like, it's so popular, yet those of you on the ground level doing the real work, it still sometimes feels like the numbers aren't reflecting that we're getting anywhere. Why do you think that is?
Before I even get into that one, and just touch back on that last thing with these dogs, right? Doc was on the kill list shelter. He was 6 months old. And if you were to meet him personally and see what this dog does, he's so human-like in his behaviors. It's amazing. But the biggest thing that we get from these dogs is unconditional love, right? That's the only side effect that you get from these animals. You're not getting IBS, you're not getting headaches, you're not getting weight gain, you're not getting tremors. You're getting unconditional love. Someone or something, an animal that is not judging you for anything that may have happened to you. They're just there to love on you.
Facts.
And that right there it's intoxicating. It's something that you want, right? We all want to be loved, right? And at the end of the day, us, if we really break it down, us as a human species, we're supposed to be with someone. And then maybe that may not be the case for everyone, right? But at least you're not alone. And I'm pointing back here because that's where Doc is at right now. He's right here at my side on my 6. So I'm never, ever alone. Even when all my kids are gone, I'm never alone. And I think that's the big thing that us veterans want. We don't ever want to be alone, right? But going forward, in terms of the politics, I don't consider myself to be a politician. My thoughts and all that are those of me and not of K9's for Warriors. Of course, I'll put that out there. But it's bureaucracy, right? Who stand personally? Again, who stands to make money, right? In this system right here, when we're talking about service dogs, who stands to make money? Not us. The VA is getting, is going to get money from Congress or a voucher for every single veteran that wants a service dog, and they get that. So K9's isn't becoming billionaires and millionaires from it. The red tape that is involved in the VA that we know that happens, I think a lot of this stuff is really basic and simple. I just think that we just need to make it that simple.
Yes.
I went down to DC. I spoke, and I was able to speak to some representatives and some senators one-on-one about this, and I gave it to them. And I kind of said, like, I don't understand what is so hard about this, right? We could spend money on everything else, right? We could send money all over the place, all over the world outside of this country. You have veterans here that are living homeless. You have veterans that are suffering from mental illness. That should not be a problem here in America. These sons and daughters of people decided to sign their name on a dotted line and go in defense of this country to do what was ever asked of them. And now all they're asking for is a little help in return. And then most of them, how most vets are. They're prideful. So they're not asking for a handout. They're just saying, hey, give me a hand up. Help me out here. And I'll take it from here. I just think it's a lot of red tape, and who stands to make money off of it? Let's face it, that's America, right? It's capitalism is great. I love it, right? It's good, but at what cost? At a veteran killing themselves? Let's be real here. There's not any one of those lives of a service member that has killed themselves. It is worth more than all the nonsense that's going on behind the scenes and all the red tape and all the monies that they're worried about here. And until I could get a politician to look me straight in the face and tell me otherwise, this falls back on them. Every day that another service member kills themselves, I'm not going to say the blood's on their hands, but the fact is that we're taking so long to get anything pushed through Congress for bills to benefit service members. You have the Iraq-Afghanistan Veteran Association, who's led by Jeremy Butler, who's doing a great push from what I can see. I don't know him personally, but I've seen the push that he's doing for a lot of veteran issues. And one's the big military sexual trauma stuff, and the other one is the burn pit. And to me, PTSD belongs right up in there.
Yeah.
If we look at the big numbers that are taking our service members outside, it's that. So we should not be fighting that hard. And I personally hold our politicians responsible for this. It should be an easy fix. Hey, we've got people who need help. Let's direct the monies where they need to go, and let's do what we need to do to slow down. Hey, are we going to stop all 22 from a day happening? Probably not. We understand that, right? We have to be realistic, but it doesn't mean that one is enough, that we could help save another and another and another. And then again, we do platforms like you, me continue to do what I do. We just hope that it splinters out, right? Spider webs keep going out all over the country, and we're able to get those numbers down drastically. And I wish I knew what the real root cause was. I mean, just being a regular citizen now and looking out, from the outside looking in, I can't see. It's about money.
At the end of the day, yeah, it is about money, and it's just crazy. Like, we have the data to show that this is a problem. Like, this ain't even like some, just gray area numbers and we're just we have actual factual data over decades that this has been an issue. We prep well for war, we fund war, but we don't have no infrastructure to rehabilitate folks when they get back. I think that's the most important thing. So I really appreciate your input on that too, man, because that's so true.
Piggyback that, and because it coincides with this, K9's for Warrior teamed up with Purdue University, right? A respectable school, we would all say, in the education system. And they wanted to show the differences of cortisol levels in veterans between pre-service dogs and after-service dogs to scientifically prove that these dogs help. Simultaneously, the VA was funding their own research about service dogs. I'm not going to question what they did. I did read the report. The way they did it, the controls that they used, the service members that they did use, there were too many other extenuating issues that they may have had that I don't think really spoke to the true numbers. They spent astronomical amounts of money on this and took a period of 10 years to do it, to come back and just say definitively they're not sure that a service dog could help. Despite what we've already proven, and when I say I mean Canines has proven that it does help. And this is where I'm talking about, here's the problem. Like, what are we worried about? Because if I take an average, let's just take me, and I probably was on a low end of the spectrum. I'll take a pill for PTSD. I take a pill for insomnia. Then I have to take another pill just to counteract the side effects of those other pills. Then I have to take another pill to counteract the pill that was used for the side effects of the other pills. Mm-hmm. So how much are those, a 1 month's prescription for one veteran or current service member does it cost? And then you times that times the rest of their life. And then with the dog, the training of the dog runs for $15,000 to $25,000, right? The dog is that. After that, the dog is yours. It's your responsibility, and just to continue to show how things of the bureaucracy, the VA came out with a program that if you have a physical and mental conjunction of a disability and you need a service dog, whether it's for blindness, mobility, things of that nature, they will offer you True Pain, which is an insurance company for dogs, medical insurance for dogs. It took me, I believe, 23 months before I got approved for this. Wow. And it just took to consistency and repetitiveness and just constant persistence. I mean, constant of beating down the VA to get this, right? To offset my financial struggles I may have with medical bills that may arise from having him. And only after, and this is the sad part, only after threatening them with contacting the VA White House hotline and contacting the Inspector General's office of the VA were things able to turn around. And veterans shouldn't have to do that. And right. With the fact of my experience of being a vet for as long as I was and the leadership positions that I had, I knew what I had to do to navigate these waters. But if you take a common veteran that may do 4 years and end up just being an E4 or an E5 and still young yet or a little wet behind the ears or naive to the system, and it's very easy to get discouraged in that system because I think a lot of us in our opinions will truly believe that they try to tire you out until you quit. And yes, that's probably not the words that they would use to describe it, but I'm going to be real, and that's just what it is. They throw you so much paperwork at you, so much bureaucracy, that eventually, finally, you're ready to throw your hands up and say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Luckily for me, I'm a little bit of a persistent pain, so I kept the pressure on them, and it happened. But we shouldn't have to come down to those threats for someone to do their job.
No, it's horrible, man, and damn, 23 months, that's terrible, man. And This is stuff we should be able to have access to with no issues, man. The bureaucracy is exactly the word that you're describing, and it's on point, man. Dave, man, you got so much value, man. I feel like I could talk to you all day about this stuff, man. This is great value for our audience, and talking to a fellow brother, man. Just wrapping up, man. Do you have any words of encouragement for military members that are about to get out, as well as current veterans out here?
Depending on your timeline of giving out, if you still have the ability to do it, even if you're a couple years out, really think about what you want to do in the civilian sector. The civilian sector has changed so much now, the landscape. I know we've been led to believe that everything has to be computer based. And, I'm witnessing the effects of COVID right now, and I'm seeing basic jobs, basic well-paying jobs that are out there and open and help one in science. And I would just say, do what makes you happy, what you want to pursue. Don't let society drive you. You drive society. And continue that whole while advocating for yourself in the military. Latch on to someone that is either in and is soon to get out, or someone who's out and has had success, whether they're an entrepreneur, whether they work for a company. You want to find that positivity and latch onto that. You want to let yourself go of those Debbie Downers, those people who are always bringing that negativity around, right? And then, so we talked about the advocacy for yourself and finding those positive people in your life. I think that's a great, great start. And just being honest, open. And if you are suffering from PTSD and entering the civilian world, or even not, come to be honest with yourself and be vulnerable. I know vulnerability is not a word that's in our character or something that we want to keep in our vernacular, but it makes you a stronger, better person. It doesn't make you weak, despite how many others look at it. Again, I could just tell you, I scraped the bottom of the barrel. I had 2 careers cut short, 2 promising careers. And for everything that had happened to me in my personal life, my professional life, many did share concerns that I could become another statistic, because it was a lot happening at once on so many different fronts. And I'm here to tell you, I'm living the best life I could have. Yes, I had to hang up my cleats early, but it's possible. You really find a more thriving life and find that purpose. So advocate for yourself, latch on to someone positive, and find that purpose that you want to do when you leave the military. And if you don't have it, then there's nothing wrong with staying in, right? There's nothing wrong with staying in and taking your time till you can have that. So when you get out, you're not so lost. Yes, I think financially, most veterans are going to be able to navigate those waters good. I think the most important part is the mental part, because if you have a family, you need to be there for them. You need to be there for yourself. And I'm open here to anyone. I've always put my information out there to anyone who wants to talk. As you can see, I'm a little long-winded, but I'm passionate about this. I love this. I want to lose another brother or sister to suicide. I don't want to hear about another military sexual trauma to any female service members I know about. I want to stop the excuses, and I just want to be a part of the solution. And I'm here to welcome anyone else who wants to help me, because right, I'm still getting better every day too. Like, your story, it strengthens me. It gives me the support and lets me know that, hey, you know what? This is not all for naught. I'm able to reach out to people, even if it's just one person. And that was the last words I'll say, is that someone said to me, even if you help one person, think about how many people in that one person's life appreciate what you did for them.
Right.
And so this message, your message that you're doing, your show, I applaud you. Keep doing it, because again, we as veterans, as I said to you earlier offline, we are who we have.
Yeah.
I would drop whatever I have to do to go take care of another veteran. And I did that this weekend. I drove 300 miles just to go take care of another veteran. And that's not, not like a big up for me. That's just what I would do. And I'm sure you would do for other veterans if they called you in a time of need. And if we can't rely on the system, then we need to rely on us. And then we really need to rewrite the system from the inside, right? From the inside out, we can do that, from us being out as veterans and talking to those that are still in.
Facts, man. I mean, we all we got, just like you said, man. And going into that, man, where can the audience find you? I'm sure they're gonna be really into what you're doing and want to follow up and keep in touch, man. Where can they find you on social media, man?
A lot of my stuff that I do in terms of K9's, you could definitely see on LinkedIn. Okay. Under David Crenshaw. I'm still have some of the PTSD things, so I'm very private on social media. I really don't have the Instagrams and stuff like that. I'm still waiting for I don't want to say huge support, but someone to really say, hey, listen, you got to really get on these platforms because there are people you could reach. And I do know that it's just a little bit of me getting over my fears. I'm old school, I don't really do this stuff too much, but eventually and slowly and surely I'm making my way out there. But definitely, if you go on LinkedIn, you can see it. If you go on K9's for Warriors, I'm sure you'll see a lot of different pieces out there with my name or my picture in it. But my email, is dcrenshaw21@gmail.com. Anybody can shoot me an email anytime. I love to get back and help and pass any information. Even those veterans that are on here that may be struggling with trying to get VA benefits, I'm 100% disabled, total and permanent. I successfully navigated that system. Took some time, but it's happened, and it can happen. And if anybody needs help with that, I'm not a counselor, but I'm here to give my personal advice and help just get anybody further along in any which way they can.
Absolutely, man. Again, audience too, go ahead and subscribe, like our videos, subscribe to our channel, Value in All Veterans. You can also follow us at Value in All Veterans on Facebook, and on Instagram, we are Value in All _vets. This
concludes... be able to follow me there now, because now you put me on the spot.
Well, I gotta just put out. Some people want to know where we at. Some people don't necessarily. They like the clips. They don't necessarily follow the whole thing. We're rolling out most of our episodes on all podcast platforms. I'll let you know when we're available everywhere. That's a big announcement that's coming. But again, I just wanted to put that out there, especially so people can find you. Just like Dave mentioned, his email, definitely hit him up on there on his LinkedIn profile. Want to appreciate you again, bro, for coming out.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Honestly, I like the work you're doing. Again, Clarice gave you guys many props, and I appreciate you, trailblazing what you're doing for the Black community, for the veteran community. I know that sometimes it's hard to bridge those two together, but you're doing a fantastic job. So keep it up. You and your brother.
Absolutely, man. You got any special shout outs you want to give? Old units, anything like that?
No, I think I gave the shout out to the person who we all owe this thanks to. Definitely Clarice Bradley, who's definitely connected us. I'm very happy that she did that. I'm very proud of her. I'm very proud to see some Hampton, some HBCUs coming together, doing some good things, and some veterans. So I do like the nexus and the connections and the bonds that are forming. So definitely, shout out to all you guys out there, and just keep doing what you're doing. And shout out to all your audience here who's listening, who, if you're still listening to me long-winded talk, then, thank you for sticking around. But yeah, definitely. Like, as we said before, we're all we got.
Facts, man. Again, thanks for tuning in. As always, our mission here at Value in All Veterans is to alleviate any anxiety or fear military members may have about life outside the gate. We'll have another great episode coming with you guys soon. Stay tuned. Follow us on social media, and we'll be in touch. All right?
All right. Good looking. Thank you. Be good.